This show contains truth, sarcasm, and opinions that may offend the fragile, the fake, and the fact-free. If you're still wearing a mask alone in your Prius, clutching your feelings instead of facts, or calling government overreach safety, this ain't your safe space. We don't do narratives, we don't do censorship, and we definitely don't do the Ministry of Truth. So grab your coffee, secure your sense of humor, and remember, in a world gone soft, sarcasm is resistance. Welcome to Data Dissonance, where we say what everyone else is scared to think.
Ceasefires, indictments, and financial freefalls sounds like just another Friday in 2025. Over in the Middle East, Israel and Hamas have hit pause, not peace, while global leaders pat themselves on the back and quietly reload the chessboard. Back home, Letitia James, the same New York Attorney General who spent years chasing Trump, just found herself indicted. And suddenly, lawfare doesn't taste so sweet on the left. And if that wasn't enough, markets are melting down from Paris to Tokyo as world economies wobble like a CNN anchor without a script. It's chaos, comedy, and consequence all rolled into one. And we're serving it hot. This is Data Dissonance, October 10th, 2025. And we've got receipts, caffeine, and zero patience for hypocrisy. All right, folks, strap in. It's Friday, which means the headlines are dumb, the guests are feisty, and my coffee's blacker than the DOJ's conscience. First up, Brian, the man who treats politics like a contact sport and hasn't lost a round yet. He's got more MAGA energy than a Trump rally at Talladega and about the same decibel level. Then there's Rachel, the independent with logic, empathy, and just enough sass to keep this show from turning into a Fox News bar fight. She's here to fact-check our testosterone and occasionally our math. Next up, Daniel, our conspiracy maestro. If there's a secret document, hidden motive, or shadow deal behind a ceasefire, he's already connected the dots and circled them in red string. And rounding us out, Skylar, our left-leaning Green Party warrior who keeps trying to save the planet while the rest of us are just trying to save our sanity. She's the moral compass that occasionally points due confusion. And me? I'm Artie Roy, the guy in the middle of this political bar fight with a mic in one hand and an existential crisis in the other. Reminding America that critical thinking didn't go extinct, it just moved to podcasting. Let's light this fuse, starting with segment 1. Ceasefire or setup. So the headlines say peace in the Middle East. Yeah, and CNN says they're objective. Israel and Hamas have officially hit pause on the carnage. The deal, brokered by the US, Qatar, and Egypt, promises hostages freed, aid convoys rolling in, and everyone pretending they trust each other. But the minute those cameras shut off, Hamas will start restocking rockets, and half the world will act shocked when this thing blows up again. I mean, it's called a temporary ceasefire. It's right there in the fine print. You could almost hear Netanyahu sigh through his teeth during the press conference. So Brian, I know you've got opinions hotter than Gaza asphalt. Is this a real diplomatic win, or just another media photo op before round 2?
You already know the answer, brother. This isn't peace. It's a pit stop. Trump's team pushed hard for it, and I'll give them credit for pulling hostages out alive. But let's be real, Hamas doesn't do peace. They do propaganda. Every lull in fighting is just time to reload. The only reason they agreed to this ceasefire is because Israel turned half their command centers into parking lots. And now the same journalists who called Israel aggressors last week are suddenly celebrating a humanitarian breakthrough. Please, the only breakthrough here is the wall of delusion surrounding the UN. This is the Middle East's favorite game. Pretend to pause, pocket the aid money, and prep for the sequel.
The sequel, coming soon to a CNN special report. You're not wrong, Brian. It feels like the Middle East just hits the same replay button every few years. Rachel, you're usually the voice of reason when Brian's ready to go. DEFCON 2. Do you buy this ceasefire as a good faith move? Or are we just watching another Peace in Our Time rerun that ends in explosions and press conferences?
Honestly, Artie, I want to believe this is a step forward, because the human toll has been unbearable. Kids, families, civilians, They've paid the highest price for political games. If even a handful of hostages are reunited with their loved ones, that matters. But I'm not naive enough to call this peace. I think everyone involved knows it's temporary. But sometimes a temporary stop can save thousands of lives, even if only for a little while. The problem is, the world always stops paying attention right after the deal. The minute headlines fade, the same cycle of violence returns. Unless something fundamentally changes, leadership, ideology, or international accountability, this ceasefire is just another press release in a long, bloody list of them.
That's the difference between hope and realism right there. Rachel's trying to see the humanity. Brian's trying to nuke the playbook. Daniel, you've got that "I already know what's really happening" grin. Go ahead, ruin the optimism. What's the play behind the play here?
You know me too well. Look, these deals never happen without someone pulling strings behind the curtain. The US didn't push this out of kindness. They did it because they're balancing too many powder kegs at once. Iran's been too quiet lately, and I guarantee there's back-channel chatter involving weapons deals, frozen assets, and a little side deal oil flow to keep China happy. Every time there's a truce, there's a financial trail that never makes the headlines. Watch for international banking activity over the next 2 weeks. You'll see money move faster than missiles. This isn't peace. It's bookkeeping disguised as diplomacy.
And there it is. Daniel dropping economic black ops in the middle of what Rachel called a humanitarian moment. Somewhere, a CIA analyst just nodded approvingly. Skylar, I'll give you the last word. From your side of the fence, how do you see this? Actual progress or another tragedy waiting to recycle itself?
Honestly, it's both. I'm glad the bombs stopped, even if it's temporary. But the truth is, this whole thing feels rigged. Every ceasefire, every deal happens under the pressure of who controls the resources, who gets the aid, who controls the pipelines, who gets the photo op, the people, the ones starving, hiding, grieving. They never actually win. The media treats it like sports highlights. Who scored? Who lost? Who blinked first? And every side has extremists who think compromise equals betrayal. Until that mindset changes, the only thing we're really negotiating is the break between wars.
Beautifully said, Skylar, and painfully true. Every ceasefire feels like hitting snooze on a bomb. The world cheers for peace while the next war warms up backstage. Maybe it's not about who wins, but who can stomach losing the least. Either way, we'll be here next week with the same headlines, different faces, and another round of outrage. All right, up next, things get spicy. The woman who made a career trying to destroy Trump is now the one behind the defendant's table. Ooh, how the turntables turn. Well, the woman who spent half a decade trying to put Trump in a courtroom just found herself walking into one. New York Attorney General Letitia James has been indicted on bank fraud charges, and if irony were taxable, the federal deficit would be gone by Monday. She's calling it a desperate political attack, which is hilarious coming from the same person who practically live-streamed her crusade to get Trump. You can almost hear the MSNBC hosts hyperventilating while CNN's in therapy. Now the left screaming weaponization, the right's calling it poetic justice, and the rest of America's just popping popcorn. Brian, you've been waiting for this one like Christmas morning. What's your read, brother? Is this accountability or payback with a bow on it?
You already know where I'm at on this, Artie. This is karma wearing handcuffs. Letitia James built her career on hating Trump. She ran her campaign promising to take him down before she'd even seen a shred of evidence. She turned the AG's office into a political weapon. And now that same system finally pointed the barrel back at her. The left's crying about political persecution. But where was that energy when Trump was indicted for breathing wrong? This is what happens when you normalize witch hunts. Eventually, the witchfinder general becomes the next witch. Honestly, I hope the system treats her exactly how she treated Trump. Mugshot, perp walk, and a headline big enough to make CNN choke on its moral superiority.
You're not wrong, man. It's like poetic justice, but with subpoenas. Rachel, you've got the middle ground goggles on. Is this justice actually served? Or are we just trading hypocrisy for revenge at this point?
It's hard to celebrate anyone getting indicted, even someone as partisan as Letitia James. But accountability has to cut both ways. If she really manipulated financial disclosures or misused her position, she should answer for it. That said, I'm not blind to the timing. We're living in an era where every indictment feels like a political hit job. No one trusts the DOJ anymore, and that's dangerous. When the public stops believing justice is blind, it stops being justice. So yes, maybe this is karma, but it's also a symptom of something bigger. A government that's forgotten the difference between justice and vengeance. We need to clean house across the board, not just cheer when the other side gets burned.
That's the sober version I needed after Brian just opened a victory cigar. Daniel, I can see that grin creeping in. You've probably got a theory involving DOJ chess moves and CIA side bets. What's your take? Who's really behind this, and why now?
Ooh, you already know. There's no such thing as coincidence at that level. This smells like an inside job. Somebody in DC needed a distraction, and Letitia James was the perfect pawn. You hit her with fraud charges right after she tried to freeze Trump's assets? That's not timing, that's messaging. It's the system saying, we can eat our own when we have to. My guess? It's a warning shot to every AG or DA thinking about turning their office into a political soapbox. And if you dig deep enough, banking records, donor lists, offshore ties, you'll probably find this rabbit hole goes right back to the same global networks funding half these grassroots prosecutions. She just became the scapegoat in a much bigger cleanup.
Daniel out here dropping House of Cards theories that sound way too believable. Skylar, I'll give you the last shot before I jump in. You've defended progressive leaders before, but even you've got to admit this one looks bad. What's your take? Setup, screw up, or self-inflicted wound?
Probably a little bit of all three. Look, I'm not defending corruption. If she did something illegal, she deserves to face it like anyone else, but it's also clear this is political. No one in power falls out of the sky randomly. Someone wanted her neutralized, and they timed it perfectly to make a statement. Still, she's not innocent in the broader sense. She played the political game hard, and when you play that game long enough, eventually you draw blood or get cut. It sucks, because it proves how broken our system is. No one trusts justice anymore. Not the right, not the left. And when every case is seen through a partisan lens, even real accountability looks like revenge. The country's rotting from that cynicism.
Amen to that. Here's my 2 cents. This isn't just about Letitia James. It's about what happens when politics replaces principle. When prosecutors start treating justice like a campaign slogan, the whole system loses credibility. She made her name trying to get Trump. And now she's the latest cautionary tale about what happens when you weaponize the law. If we're going to rebuild faith in this country, justice can't depend on who you voted for. Either we hold everyone to the same standard, or we're just running a political Hunger Games in suits and subpoenas. All right. After the break, we're leaving DC and crossing the ocean again, because global markets are having a full-blown panic attack. Japan's got new leadership, France can't hold a government for 5 minutes, and Wall Street's praying caffeine counts as currency. Stay tuned. You're listening to Data and Dissonance. But first, a quick word from the people keeping this caffeine-fueled circus alive. You. The Data and Dissonance merch store is stocked and roaring. Patriotic shirts, Gen X gear, hoodies, mugs, and the only coffee that'll make your morning feel like a MAGA rally. High Lakes Light, Rock Creek Medium, and Bitterroot Dark. Every sale helps us keep the lights on, the mics hot, and the sarcasm legally caffeinated. Grab your gear, fuel the fight, and tick off a liberal, one mug at a time. Go to Data and Dissonance at printify.me. All right, back to the chaos. So while we've been busy watching DC implode and the Middle East pretend to make nice, the world economy decided to join the circus. In Japan, new leader Sanai Takaichi walks into power and immediately spooks investors by hinting at tighter spending. And over in France, the entire government just resigned hours after being sworn in. That's not politics. That's a fire drill with baguettes. Markets everywhere are jittery, the euro's sliding, and Wall Street's treating coffee like liquid Prozac. Brian, you're our blue-collar economist. What's your take, brother? Are we looking at a financial storm or just another overhyped CNN panic special?
It's a storm, Artie. And it's been brewing since the globalists started running everything off feelings instead of fundamentals. Japan's spooked because they finally admitted they can't print money forever. And France? Well, France collapses more than Biden's bike. The markets hate uncertainty, and right now the world's running on it. Trump warned everyone this was coming. Spend like a drunken bureaucrat long enough, and the hangover hits hard. I don't buy the temporary correction line. This is what happens when every Western nation follows the same economic playbook. Borrow, bail out, repeat, and call it stability.
France collapses more than Biden's bike. I'm stealing that one. Rachel, you've got the financial chops. Is this a legitimate warning sign or just market drama mixed with political chaos?
Honestly, a bit of both. Global markets are like nervous toddlers. They'll throw tantrums over uncertainty even if the fundamentals aren't crumbling yet. Japan tightening spending isn't catastrophic. It's overdue. And France? Well, their politics have been unstable since Napoleon took his last selfie. But what worries me is how interconnected everything's become. A hiccup in Tokyo causes a migraine on Wall Street. When investors lose confidence in global leadership, whether it's Macron's collapse or DC's shutdown, the dominoes fall fast. The real danger isn't the numbers, it's the narrative. Fear drives markets faster than facts ever will.
Couldn't agree more. And fear's the world's most profitable product. Daniel, I see that smirk. You've been tracking this like a spy thriller. Tell me, is this just economic karma, or are the elites setting the board again?
Oh, it's never random. You don't get synchronized chaos in Japan and France without someone cashing in behind the curtain. When you follow the paper trail, you start seeing hedge fund clusters repositioning days before the announcements hit. That's not luck, that's insider choreography. I'd bet my coffee stash that central banks are coordinating accidental volatility to justify another wave of digital currency testing. Every crash creates control. And right now, global powers want programmable money more than stability. This is the financial version of never let a crisis go to waste.
So, Daniel's basically saying the Illuminati just shorted the yen. Skylar, bring us back to Earth. You've been talking for months about economic reform and environmental funding. What's your read on this mess?
It's exactly what happens when greed runs the planet. Governments collapse, markets panic, and everyday people pay the price. Japan and France are just canaries in the coal mine. Global inequality has been widening for years. Workers can't keep up, and the system's too top-heavy to sustain itself. Whether you're conservative or progressive, everyone's tired of watching billionaires gamble with currencies while the rest of us juggle rent and grocery bills. I don't think it's orchestrated, but I do think it's the natural consequence of decades of corruption and short-term politics. The world doesn't need another bailout. It needs a reset based on actual human survival, not quarterly earnings.
There it is. Skylar bringing a moral compass to a poker table. Look, no matter how you slice it, the global economy's running on fumes and faith. Every nation's pretending they've got a plan while quietly hoping someone else blinks first. Japan's tightening, France is unraveling, and America's in a shutdown. And somehow Wall Street still thinks Starbucks stock is a safe bet. If that's not a sign of collective delusion, I don't know what is. Okay, up next, we'll wrap up the week the way we always do. Patriot Minute and final thoughts. Because even when the markets tank, the flag still stands. All right, folks, it's Friday. The caffeine's kicked in. The week's chaos is in full swing, and that means it's time to bring in the crew for our favorite part of the show, the panelist segments. This is where each of these maniacs gets their minute to burn, rant, or blow your mind, depending on the level of caffeine and conspiracy in their system. First up, the man who treats fake news like target practice and hasn't missed a shot yet, Brian with the MAGA fire. Then, the voice of reason wrapped in red pill logic. Rachel brings her red pill rant. Our in-house tinfoil tactician connecting global chaos like it's a board game. Daniel with the conspiracy board. And rounding it out, our eco-warrior with a conscience, conviction, and a playlist full of protest songs, Skylar with the green perspective. All right, let's light it up.
You know what fires me up, Artie? Hypocrisy. This week proves every word we've said for years. The so-called elite class is just a revolving door of corruption wearing different party pins. Letitia James spent half her career trying to crucify Trump. Now she's crying political persecution? Please, that's not justice. That's poetic symmetry. And the same crowd that told us the border's secure and the economy's strong now wants sympathy for their own meltdown. Newsflash, this is what accountability looks like. Trump said he'd drain the swamp. Turns out the swamp's deeper than we thought, but the plug's finally been pulled. So to every bureaucrat, career politician, and TV pundit who's been selling fear for profit, good luck, because America's awake. The MAGA movement's not backing down, and 2025's just getting started.
Sometimes I think we've all overdosed on outrage. Every headline's designed to make us hate somebody. You've got the left screaming fascism and the right screaming traitor. And somewhere in the middle are millions of Americans just trying to pay bills and live with a little dignity. This week, ceasefires, indictments, markets, it all reminds me how fragile this balance is. Truth doesn't belong to one side. It's buried under all the noise. And that's what this show's about, cutting through the static and reminding people that real freedom starts with critical thinking. You don't have to agree with Trump to admit corruption's real. You don't have to be a pacifist to want peace. You just have to care more about truth than tribe. Because the second we stop questioning both sides, the system wins, and we all lose.
All right, call me crazy, again, but this week's pattern is too neat to ignore. Ceasefire, indictment, market crash. That's not random. That's coordination. You destabilize global energy through conflict, distract the public with political scandals, and trigger a market event that consolidates wealth in fewer hands. Sound familiar? It's the same cycle we've seen before every major shift in world order. And I guarantee there are war rooms somewhere where this chaos is mapped out to the minute. The elites thrive on volatility. It's how they reset the board without firing a shot. So when the media says unexpected, I hear planned. The truth's not hiding in plain sight, it's hiding in the timing.
I'll admit, Daniel's got me half convinced sometimes, but whether it's deliberate or not, he's right about one thing. Chaos always hits the poor first. The markets crash, politicians bicker, and billionaires still make money while regular people lose everything. It's not sustainable. Climate change, war, economic collapse, they're all symptoms of the same disease. Greed. We can't fix one without addressing the others. And I don't care what side you're on. If you're not fighting for a world that values people over profit, you're fighting for extinction. So yeah, call me idealistic, but I still believe we can rebuild something better, cleaner, fairer, and stronger if we stop letting the corrupt set the rules.
You know, every week we talk about corruption, conflict, and chaos. But we never forget the people who hold this country together through it all. Tonight's Patriot Minute is dedicated to the men and women who stand guard while the politicians play games. The soldiers at the border, the cops keeping our neighborhoods safe, and the first responders running toward danger when everyone else runs away. You're the backbone of this country. You don't ask for headlines and you don't ask for credit. You just show up every damn day. And while the world argues about who's right, you prove what right looks like. America's built on that grit. The kind that doesn't bend, doesn't quit, and sure as hell doesn't apologize for standing tall. So to every patriot out there keeping the lights on in this republic, we see you, we thank you, and we'll keep fighting the noise so your sacrifices mean something. This has been your Patriot Minute, because freedom isn't free, but it's always worth it. You know, every Friday we go through the same whirlwind. Headlines stacked with chaos, stories soaked in spin, and a world that feels like it's teetering between revelation and collapse. But by the end of the week, after the dust settles, there's always that moment where we stop yelling about the news and start thinking through it. That's what this part's about. No scripts, no filters, just the truth as we see it. Because for all the politics, propaganda, and posturing, the only thing that really matters is what kind of country we're becoming, and whether or not we still have the guts to fight for it. So as we wrap up this week of ceasefires, indictments, and market meltdowns, let's slow it down and lay it out plain. What did we learn? What matters most? And where the hell do we go from here? Brian, you've been fired up all night. I'll start with you, brother. What's your final thought tonight?
You know, Artie, I look at this week and I see a pattern: weakness rewarded, accountability avoided, and a media that still thinks we're too dumb to notice. The same people who called Trump a criminal are now clutching their pearls when one of their own faces charges. The same global leaders preaching peace keep funding chaos behind the curtain. And yet, through it all, Americans are still out there working, praying, raising families, and refusing to quit. That's what gives me hope. Not the politicians, the people. Every time the swamp rears its ugly head, there's still someone out there waving a flag, building something real and proving that the spirit of this country doesn't break. So yeah, the system's corrupt, but the soul of America? That's still solid gold.
Amen to that, brother. Rachel, I know you've been sitting back taking all this in. What's your final word tonight?
Honestly, Artie, I think we're at a crossroads, not just politically, but morally. Every side's so convinced they're right that no one's actually listening anymore. The ceasefire, the indictments, the markets, they're all reflections of the same sickness, power without perspective. We've lost empathy in our arguments. We treat outrage like currency and truth like an inconvenience. But I still believe most Americans, right, left, independent, just want fairness, stability, and honesty. If we can get back to talking to each other instead of at each other, maybe there's still hope for this republic. Until then, we keep doing what we do here, breaking the echo chamber, one episode at a time.
Beautifully said. Daniel, you've been connecting dots all week, man. What's the big picture look like to you tonight?
The big picture? Simple. Control versus consciousness. The elites use chaos to condition people. Ceasefires distract from economics. Indictments distract from surveillance. Market crashes distract from policy shifts. It's all one giant shell game. But here's the good news. People are waking up faster than they can rewrite the script. Every lie has a shorter shelf life now. That's the danger for the establishment. Not Trump, not populism, awareness. Once people start questioning everything, you can't herd them anymore. So yeah, the world's on fire, but the flames are revealing the truth, not hiding it.
Man, only you could make global collapse sound motivational. All right, Skylar, bring it home from your side. What's your final thought tonight?
You know, Artie, I think all this chaos, political, economic, environmental, is forcing us to confront what really matters. Every ceasefire, every scandal, every market crash, it all points to one simple truth. We've built a system that serves itself instead of the people in it. But we don't have to accept that. Change doesn't have to come from billionaires or bureaucrats. It comes from us, from communities, from compassion, from actually giving a damn about something bigger than ourselves. I might see the world through a different lens than Brian or Daniel, but I think deep down we all want the same thing. A country that actually lives up to the words it prints on its currency. In God we trust.
And that right there is the point. You don't have to agree with everyone at this table. Hell, we rarely agree with each other. But at least we talk. We debate, we argue, we laugh. And somehow, through all that noise, we find a little bit of truth left in the static. This week proved that power's fragile, peace is temporary, and hypocrisy is eternal. But so is the American spirit. You can shut down governments, indict leaders, and crash markets, but you can't cancel grit. That's what this show's about. A reminder that truth still matters, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's ugly, even when it hurts. So wherever you are tonight, working, driving, unwinding, remember this. The world might be insane, but sanity starts when you stop believing everything they tell you. Until next time, I'm Artie Roy. This is Data and Dissonance, and we'll be back Monday with more truth, more fire, and probably less sleep. Remember to speak truth. Stir thought. Tonight's episode of Data and Dissonance was brought to you by the Caleb Rourke Thriller series. Where fiction meets truth and conspiracy isn't theory, it's plot. If you haven't yet, grab The Covenant Protocol and The Prophet Directive, both out now, and get ready for Book 3, Black Echo Rising, coming this winter. They're fast, fearless, and unapologetically American, just like this show. Available now on Amazon, Apple Books, and everywhere stories still dare to challenge the system. And don't forget, if you love the show, fuel the mission. Hit up the Data and Dissonance store for patriotic shirts, Gen X gear, mugs, hoodies, and our coffee lineup. High Lakes Light, Rock Creek Medium, and Bitterroot Dark Roast. Roasted right here in the USA for folks who like their mornings bold and their government small. Go to Data and Dissonance at printify.me